What's up, everybody? This week on The Fight Life, we have a couple of things that are a little bit different. We brought in a boxer today. I know you guys think of us more of a mixed martial arts type format and show, but you know what? We are The Fight Life, which means that we are going to be bringing in fighters from all walks of life. It doesn't necessarily have to be just an MMA fighter. You know, it could be a boxer, Muay Thai fighter, even cancer survivors, people that fight for something. That's what we look for. You know, people that are basically in this everyday struggle to try to achieve something. Although fighting, as far as your sport goes, is really what we do tend to focus on. But we brought Ava Knight in. She's a WBC champion in boxing. So we sat down, talked to her a little bit about the state of female boxing and what that scene looks like. Obviously, things have changed. People aren't really following it as much as they did in the days of Riker, Ali, and Mia St. John. I mean, people don't follow them as much. So we talked to her a little bit about the state of boxing. Also talking about the state of mixed martial arts a little bit was Matt Riddle. He stopped in, just talking a little bit about some of the changes. When we interviewed him last year, he had basically been released from the UFC because of marijuana use and speaking out on TRT. And what's happening now is that they've increased the level of marijuana metabolites a person can have in their system, as well as an outright ban on TRT. So you're getting his thoughts a year later on those same situations. And of course, you know, we are looking at possibly having somebody in from the World Series of Fighting that's going to be making their debut. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled, guys. Enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Fight Life. We're here with Ava Knight, professional boxer, world champion boxer. She has a couple of different titles. Tell us which titles you have right now in professional boxing.
Right now I have the WBC Silver World title, the WBC Diamond title, and I just, I guess I forfeited the IBF World title, but I was currently holding that not too long ago.
So, you know, a lot of people have known us for our work with mixed martial arts. We're segueing into getting into some boxing, Muay Thai, because we are Fight Life Media. That way you guys know that we're covering all aspects of combat sports. But, you know, the boxing path is usually a little bit different from, you know, what people probably hear us when we talk about the mixed martial arts path. Let's talk about how you got started in in boxing, actually.
I don't have the normal story of people who get into boxing. You know, most people have a rough childhood, or, you know, growing up in bad areas and they go to the boxing gym. Mine was sort of, you know, I grew up in the little town of Chico, California, which is a pretty uppity place, and I just had nothing to do. I went to the gym one day at 13 years old and fell in love with boxing, and I just never stopped. I went to the gym every day until the first day I sparred, and my friend knocked me right on my butt with a punch. And I just couldn't stop laughing, and it was just, I guess that was the moment that I just couldn't stop, and I've been doing it ever since.
Now let's talk about what that was like. I mean, obviously you got knocked on your butt in the gym, but, you know, what was it like the first time you actually stepped into the ring and competed?
My first fight, amateur fight, was at, I think I was 14, and it was with a girl with 7 fights, and it was probably 10 pounds bigger than me, but I just went in there and scrapped it out. I mean, I was rough as a kid, and I just threw punches everywhere. But the feeling getting in the ring was like nothing I've ever felt before. I mean, I guess some people do drugs, some people race cars, they drive fast. For me, it was getting into the ring, you know, throwing punches at someone and not getting hit. Like that, the beauty of that was just incredible.
Now, you've been able to turn that into a professional career. You know, tell us a little bit about, you know, those major differences that you see. Obviously, getting paid is one of them, but, you know, when you step a little further into the professional ranks, there's, you know, things like politics and other things. Let's talk a little bit about what it's like being a professional boxer.
You know, it's really hard to be a professional boxer. I think as a woman, I could say it's that much harder, you know, more than a male, because there's less women out there. There's less people who want to support women, and then a lot of men don't want to see women in the ring fighting. You know, with MMA, I guess that's a different story now, but with boxing, you know, it's so old school that people still don't want to see us and they don't support us, so we just have a really hard time. and we're hoping that things change around. You know, we did have an easier time probably in the 90s and before with women. They had Christy Martin and Mia St. John and Layla Ali, but those girls are gone, and the girls that were fighting, you know, they didn't have a chance because they didn't have the big names. But it's really hard to get started. We don't get the credit and everything else that's deserved that the men get. We just don't get.
So do you feel kind of like, you know, those women obviously, you know, set a different standard for the sport of boxing through the 90s, but do you feel like it kind of has taken a step backwards in a way?
You know, they set the grounding for women. I honestly think the women now are better than they were before, you know, just like some boxers today. I heard Floyd Mayweather say yesterday that, you know, the fighters from yesterday aren't as good as the fighters today, you know, that he could beat them all. And I believe that with talent and change that people can adapt to that, and those girls just aren't the same as they are now. And we haven't taken a step back in talent, but we have taken a step back in people who want to support us.
Now, you know, let's talk a little bit about that. Do you think that as far as you know, the ranks are concerned and everything like that, you think there's definitely enough women in the sport?
Yeah, I definitely do. Especially, I mean, other countries have them. The men, they fly champions from all over the world to make those big fights. You know, Mexico, South America, and Europe, they have big, great fights that they have here, and they're fighting our American fighters. But the women, it's the opposite. We have to fly everywhere to get fights, just like my last 5 fights have been in Mexico, and it's really tough to fight not only an opponent, but a whole country.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm always definitely interested in that aspect of sports. You know, your last fights were in Mexico. What's that like, traveling down there? It's such a rich culture of boxing history as well. You know, what's that like, going down to a place like that and having to fight against their hometown?
It's really tough. I mean, I definitely have a lot of fans in Mexico that appreciate me and my style and that I come to fight. But like I said, like, you're fighting the whole country. Everybody is against you, and you're always an opponent. You never get to go down to someone else's country and say, you know, I can win on points. Every time you go somewhere, everyone thinks that you got to knock them out to win, and 99% of the time that's true, unless you're just beating them down, which I've had to do a few times. And you know, I've had trouble with the people around me, even the fans, getting spit on and getting into the ring. You know, it's challenging. Not only do you have to block all that out, but you have to stick to your game plan.
Okay, so you have fought in all these different countries. You've fought, you know, a lot actually, you know, and you've won titles. What's it like when you first win that first title?
It's, you know, I've always had a different feeling, I think, than most fighters. For me, it's bittersweet. Because not only, like, it's great to feel that I am the champion, and I've done so much for the sport. With 16 fights, I've, you know, gained 5 titles. I've held them three defenses on one and 4 on the other, and it just becomes a point where I'm here with 5 titles with 16 fights when a male with 20-some fights beating up a bunch of bums gets a title shot and gets way more respect and credit than I do. And that's why I say it's, you know, a bittersweet thing. You know, it's one way, but I get it the other way too.
Now, you have had a lot of accomplishments. What is on the horizon for you? What other things do you want to accomplish in the sport of women's boxing?
You know, I just want to make women's boxing a better sport. I think I'm one of the few women who haven't given up on the sport. I've continued. There's times that I've wanted to, but I never have stopped. And with the losses that I've had and, you know, all the disrespect that I get for what I've done, I've still continued to strive on. I've stayed strong. I think it's bigger than any male will ever have to go through, with the heart that I have to fight not only the world, you know, against women and the sexism and the pay and everything. And I'm still doing it, and I'm still fighting strong. And I think it's gonna turn around now. People are starting to notice the women, and I just keep showing up everywhere, and I put my face everywhere, put my name everywhere, so people are starting to notice.
Now,
this is going to be more for the MMA fans out there, because obviously this is a huge question that they always ask, right, of a boxer. But, you know, I grew up in New Mexico, and Holly Holm, obviously a great boxer from there. One of the only reasons I knew of her was because she's from my home state. You know, as far as female boxing now, a lot of people know who she is. They talk about the talent that she has to come in and dethrone, you know, fighters in mixed martial arts. You know, what are your thoughts on that difference too? Because you are looking at that. MMA has kind of blown up, and you know, I think like you're saying, women's MMA has blown up, and then women's boxing has kind of fallen by the wayside. What is it that you think that is going to be necessary for women's boxing to make that huge comeback?
You know, a lot of women in boxing are turning to MMA, which I've noticed. And even, you know, the fighters on, I think the Ultimate Fighter, I think there's a championship boxer on there, a woman, I forgot her name. But, I mean, all we need is that one person to come up and put one woman on a showcase. That's all they did with Ronda Rousey. They brought this girl who had a gold medal and put her on TV, and everybody loved her. So why can't we do it with boxing? You know, we just need that big promoter, the big TV, just for someone to show some interest in it. And then it'll change people's minds. They'll get into it, they'll love it, and we'll all get to get better from it.
Well, you know, here we're definitely big supporters of women's boxing. You know, it's why you're here, actually, to talk a little bit about that. So, you know, when you think you're going to be fighting again, and when can we look forward to seeing you in the ring?
You know, it's really tough. We're still working on it. We have some things to dish out, but hopefully soon. I see the horizon for women's boxing changing. I think it's going to get a lot bigger, a lot faster, and I just hope it's pretty nearer than far.
All right. So before we let you go, we always ask everybody this question. It takes a lot of motivation, self-sacrifice. There's a lot of time spent in the gym. You know, waking up, I'm sure there's days where you're just like, man, I don't want to do this. But, you know, what is it that you fight for? What keeps you motivated to continue in your sport?
You know, it's the young girls that look up to me. Like I said, I've had a tough road, probably a road that's not worth it and takes a strong person to go through. But when I get those young girls who look up to me and write me every day and tell me that they want to be like me, that's the reason I keep fighting. I just don't get paid enough to want to keep doing it. My lifestyle is probably worse than anybody working a 9-to-5 job. So, and it's that much hard. Like you said, we get up every day in the morning. We have to run. We have to eat right. It's a 24/7 job. So those girls keep me going.
All right. So there you guys have it. Ava Knight, support women's boxing. It's going to be back on the horizon here pretty soon. But as of right now, Ava, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time here on the bandwagon, once again with yours truly, one of the most controversial men on the internet, Smash Fields. And today what we're going to be talking about, really simple guys, judging. And if anybody was able to watch Glory of Cro Cop versus Remy, y'all know exactly why I'm going to talk about this, because I could not believe the decision that was handed down in that fight. Cro Cop went out there and he won that fight. And in my opinion, he won not only just a decision, he won a very, 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 very wide margin win. I felt like he dominated in a way. No offense to Remy, who's a great fighter. And, you know, I do say, if you're going to go out and, you know, retire the way you did. Congratulations on a career that you've had. But, you know, it really takes away now from Cro Cop's legacy, because in all reality, he went out and he won that fight. Judging in MMA, not just MMA actually, judging altogether in combat sports needs to change. I mean, all the way from the Floyd Mayweather fight to the don't get me started on the GSP Johnny Hendricks fight, because if we do that, I'm going to be standing here talking for days and days and days, because I cannot believe there's still people out there, judges out there, people who are still backing that decision. I mean, can you believe that? GSP beats Johnny Hendricks after getting destroyed? That's like, oh, I don't know, maybe a particular Seattle team catching or throwing an interception in the middle of the end zone, and suddenly that's the game-winning interception. Kind of weird, right? We're not going to get into that, though, but refs, judging, all the same thing. Now, for those of you that don't understand where I'm coming from, here's what I have to say, okay? The way the judging goes down is it's on a 10-point must system. What a 10-point must system is you get 10 points that goes to the winner of that round. 9 or less to the loser of that round. And every once in a while, if it's really that much of an even, then we go ahead and we give the guys both 10 rounds. But it is a 10-point must system. I know it sounds like I'm rambling, but you guys got to understand that this is such a big deal. And it's sad to say for me, but there's so many fights that have had such horrible decisions. Unfortunately, 3 of them go to one of my favorite guys on the planet, Benson Henderson, who is definitely the king of controversial decisions. You got the Gilbert Melendez fight that, sorry, Ben, you lost. You have the Thompson fight that, sorry, Ben, you lost. And then you've got, oh, geez, do I have to say it, the Frankie Edgar 2 fight, which, sorry, Ben, you lost. Those aren't the only fights that are on the bracket, though. I mean, let's look at all the other times. We don't have time for all that. So I'm just going to say this. Judging has got to be changed. The way that I look at it, guys, it's really simple. Let's take these judges and let's give them mandatory MMA classes. Let's let them actually come in, see what's going on, learn how to do their kickboxing, their Muay Thai, their boxing, their jiu-jitsu, their wrestling, all of that. If they can come in and actually see what gives you an advantage in a fight and what gives you a disadvantage when you're up, when you're down, things like that, I think that things can change. And I think that's what we all want. So let's all stand up today. Let's all be on the bandwagon for change. So Smash Fields this week on the bandwagon for change in judging.
All right, what's up, everybody? Got a special treat today. Matt Riddle, fresh off of a win at Titan FC. How's it going, Matt?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's been a while since we talked to you. Last time we talked to you, you had basically been up and down with deciding what you were going to do with your career. There was a point there where you said you were going to retire. Obviously, that's not the case. So let's catch up a little bit, and let's just start here with the most recent thing that went down. Fighting for Titan FC, what was that like for you?
It was great to get back in the cage after a year off. I really wanted to fight. It was a little different fighting for the UFC in some bigger arenas than Titan. The arena could have used a facelift, but other than that, it was a good show, good competition, and I had fun. Always do.
So how did they treat you over there? Was it pretty?
Yeah, they treated me pretty good, couldn't complain, they paid me on time, they flew me in, they flew me out, and they put me in a hotel room the whole time, so they did everything they said they were going to do, and I couldn't ask for more, so.
Now we know that in the past there was a time where you were going to go to Legacy, for example, and some other places, and you just weren't kind of happy with the way that the business was handled, so it's good to know that you've kind of found a place that does what they say that they're going to do.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. You have fought at the upper tiers with the UFC. I mean, it's a little bit different because you started your career pretty much with them, and then you're kind of, working back. So let's talk about those sorts of things, the professionalism in the sport amongst promoters and those sorts of things. What are your thoughts on those right now?
It's just, I always talk about MMA and I'm like, she's a cruel mistress, There's no right answer to any question in this, Is it right to take fights on 2 weeks' notice? Should I fight for this guy? Should I sign a 4-fight deal? And, and with my experience in the sport over the last 6-7 years and my time, it's like, you're as only good as your last fight. You shouldn't really sign anything unless you're going to get something out of it. And sign a multi-fight deal, just for everybody at home, you're not getting anything. They get you for 3-4 fights or whatever, and you can't go anywhere else or fight anywhere else. So how is that like, oh, I got a good deal? You know what I'm saying? So for people at home, just take that into consideration. Signing a 4-fight deal isn't necessarily a good thing. So, right now I'm just taking one fight at a time, and just keeping business simple, one fight at a time, keep it honest. I tell them what I want, how much I need, what I need, and as long as they're willing to do that, I'm willing to fight, at a drop of a dime. So
we with the retirement, it seemed like, there was just kind of a distaste for some of the stuff that goes on in the sport as far as, let's say, the politics of the sport or different things like that. Do you feel now that you're taking a different approach to it, different outlook? Do you feel, like you've kind of found that passion for MMA again?
You know, this is the thing, man. After my last fight, you know, I took some time off, and still before the last fight last Friday, I was like, you know, I'm doing this. I make decent money doing it, but is this like, I mean, I like fighting, but is this really like something I want to do? And then I fought, and the thing is, that feeling you get when you fight or beat somebody up or choke somebody out or just winning a fight and being right there in that moment, there's nothing else that really compares to it or can equal to that feeling. So yeah, I just want to keep fighting. I want to get back in there just like I was a year ago, fighting like every other month, because you know, I got that feeling again. You know, it's probably the most addictive drug I've ever tried, and it would have to be winning. Winning, you just want to keep doing it, and nothing feels better. So yeah, I have that passion back, and I'm going to run with it and see where it takes me.
So speaking of drugs.
Speaking of drugs.
You know, it was last time we talked, it was really no secret, you know, of the marijuana use, but then you also talked about, you know, you had the exemptions for medical use, and your main issue was, you know, here is me taking something that's natural from the earth, and here's other people taking hormones that are being injected into their body. You spoke out on TRT. You felt that was one of the reasons that your release from the UFC came. Recently, the UFC has basically come out and said, we're backing the Nevada State Commission on this whole thing of no TRT. We don't want it in our sport. We don't want it in our organization. You know, what are your thoughts on them flip-flopping stances, especially after you?
You know, when I read it, it was actually that article, that information for me, that meeting the Nevada State Athletic Commission had, came out probably like a day or two right before my fight I just had last week, and I was ecstatic. I was super excited. You know, it's something I've seen in the sport, and I thought it was a travesty seeing guys be able to prolong their career and stay in that opportunity, that window of opportunity, while guys like me are coming up. We're in our prime. We're in our peak. It's our time to shine, and there's still guys from the last generation sticking around because they're abusing steroids. You know? So when I found out guys, you know, they're going to be taken off it, and I don't mind if they still fight, but now they're playing on the same playing field because they don't have the same drive that they used to have and things like that, because I have it naturally. I want to fight, you know. If you have to inject yourself with something to get to my level, you don't belong here, you know. And I'm just super happy they changed it. All they have to do now is, you know, they changed the marijuana levels to, they times it by 10 from 15 to 150. Maybe they just get rid of that completely. That would probably be the next step, and I'd be super stoked about that.
So, you know, it's funny because now if you do look at it, it's a year later and things are, the way that just the progression and the changes that constantly take place in the sport, I mean, it's something that could wind up being something that benefits an athlete like yourself, where other people feel it's a disadvantage. You know, what do you think that should be happening with a lot of these older guys? You know, they're obviously not going to be able to stay as competitive. Some of them are saying, if you're not doing TRT anymore, I'm out. I quit. That's it. I'm done. You know, what do you think they should be looking at as far as the next step of their careers?
You know, I think it's unfortunate, but I think being part of a successful fighter and a human being is you got to look past a part of your life, and they should have been looking past this part of their life and looking for the future. Maybe start training people and holding pads or teaching jiu-jitsu, or a whole completely different job like real estate or something like that that they can fall into, because you don't get a 401k fighting professionally. You don't get benefits. You can't collect unemployment when you get fired. It's, you fight, you get paid, that's that. You don't get paid for anything else. So for those guys, you know, I mean, I wish them the best, you know, because I will be one of those guys as well. But, you know, I'm already taking precautions and making sure I have a future outside of MMA, because I know there's not going to be something left over for me after I'm done, you know?
Now, that is something that I like to always touch on, is exit strategy. And people really taking themselves seriously as a business. A lot of guys come in, they just want to fight, that's it. They're kind of like, oh yeah, I was a fighter, but then, you know, you kind of see, we've seen it in the past, or in boxing, where you see a homeless guy on the street who was like one of the best guys in the world, but he's homeless today. So, you know, what did you do with your career? What was your strategy to get out? You know, what are your thoughts on that, or any advice you can give to some of the younger guys that are coming up about setting an exit strategy in place and actually, you know, planning on the years past MMA?
You know, any information I'd give to a younger man is don't throw all your eggs in one basket. You know, just because you see us on TV doesn't mean we're millionaires. You know, like, I live in the suburbs in Vegas, you know, just like you or probably anybody else who lives out here with a family, you know. I'm not raking in millions of dollars. I was on TV last Friday, you know. It's just, I made a couple $1,000s in sponsorships, made a couple $1,000s to fight, you know, and that's the reality. And the reality is you can only get about 3 to 4 fights a year. So you can only make so much money, and that's the reality. You can only make so much money, and you got to have something else to fall back on, a college education, you know, even being a massage therapist, anything that can make like $500 a week. Because I'm not saying you won't be able to fight, make enough money where you can invest in something and start your own business or something, but to think you're going to keep making that money after you're done fighting, it's not going to happen. I think that's what happens to, you know, the Shamrocks and some other people. You're making these decent paydays, getting sponsors, this, that, and the other thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm done. This money will last, and it doesn't because you're still spending it the same way. So, you know, best bet is save your money, invest it, and just be smart. Don't waste it. Don't think you're a baller because you made $10,000 in one night. It's cool, but realize you're not going to fight for another 4 months. So $10,000 every 4 months really isn't that much money.
So, you know, let's talk about what you learned through all of your experiences over the last year. You know, obviously there was a time where you were just kind of not fighting, and you probably were in that position where you're kind of looking at it like saying, maybe I have to make it, you know, a plan for what I'm doing after fighting, or, you know, maybe you were already doing that before. But let's talk about what you learned during that time and those experiences.
Your money's not going to last, you know, because after I was on a 4-fight win streak, I had enough money where, you know, I thought maybe I'd be able to coast for a while, do whatever. Doesn't last, need to make some money, you know, and just had to work, you know. I got my realtor's license, started doing that, and fortunately for me, I was successful, and I made some money, a couple sales. So it's kind of like fighting. You don't have to work all the time, but you get a payday there and there, and just hustling and grinding and just trying to make ends meet, you know. That's basically what I learned in this past year. And don't trust anybody on their word or even on paper, because unless you know the person and they have your best interest at heart, you know, they probably don't. You know, there's a reason why people talk to you or want to do business with you. It's so they can make money, you know. So that's what I also learned. It's like, you know, you can trust your family, trust yourself, but you got to watch out for, you know, other people looking out for their own best interest.
You know, and that's something that I have talked about in some regard in regards to promotions and fighters is you know, that a lot of people tend to believe like, oh, the promoter's doing all of this for me, and sometimes it's not really the case. Sometimes I've seen situations where promoters will help an injured fighter, and then that fighter's like, oh, I'm going to go fight for this other organization, and they're like, all right, pay me now, you know, because now they owe them, you know what I mean? Because that help wasn't really, it was to secure them, to make them money. So, you know, those are situations that definitely arise. What can we look forward to with you here moving forward and in the future?
Honestly, I think 2014's going to be a super year. Started off with a bang. I got invited to judge the LA Cannabis Cup. So I got to do that. That was a dream come true. I was actually in February's issue of High Times this year. So that was also a huge bonus for me. It's always been a dream of mine to judge a Cannabis Cup and be in High Times magazine for something, you know. I never knew what, but, you know, got in, so I was stoked about that. And I think the rest of the year, I think I'm going to fight probably at least 3 more times, you know. I fought last week, no bruises, bumps, or injuries, so I just want to keep going. I've been training still, so hopefully I can get 3 or more fights in this year, and hopefully they give me another shot in the UFC so I can actually, you know, see what I'm made of and crack into that top 10 and actually fight the best of the best in the world. But, you know, worst comes to worst, they don't pick me up, and I fight outside the UFC, and probably fight the next 2 to 3 years and be done, you know.
Now let's say they were to give you a call back. We've kind of seen a couple situations. Anthony Johnson's a big example of somebody who they said we'll never have him back, and now he's back. He's obviously in a different weight class because of his success with World Series of Fighting. But you know, if they do bring you back, how do you feel you stack up against the rest of the division?
You know, I think I stack up well middleweight or welterweight. You know, this past year, even though I hadn't been fighting, all I've been doing is training, and my last fight was easy. Before that, the other fights seemed easy. It seems like fighting's just really easy for me, and think I'll stack up well. I think that was part of the problem, part of the reason they got rid of me too. They knew I was probably going to make my way up the ladder and build more steam and be more vocal, and I think that's part of the reason why they got rid of me as well. But I think I stack up fantastic against every welterweight in the UFC, from the world champion all the way down to, you know, the worst guy in the UFC. You know, I'm just one of those guys. Division I, you know, wrestler, state national champion, brown belt in jiu-jitsu under Robert Drysdale, and been striking with Ken Hahn, Mark Beecher, James McSweeney. Trained Muay Thai with like everybody, so bound to pick something up. So I know I got the skills. I train with world-class people like Martin Kampman and other guys, and I hold my own, and I do very well against these guys. So I know I'm at the level. It's just a matter of getting the opportunity again, and if I don't get it soon, I'll just keep fighting and fighting, and hopefully I do. And if I don't, you know, unfortunately I'll never know the answer, but I'll, you know, at least I had fun doing it.
So one of the things that we've been talking about, obviously, over the interview is, you know, plans that people have for after the sport. But in sports, one of the biggest things is legacy. What do you think that your legacy is going to be on the sport, or what legacy would you like to leave on the sport once it's all said and done?
You know, I think the legacy I'm probably going to leave is the whole marijuana thing. I think a lot of people are going to focus on that, you know, getting fired while winning, using marijuana while it's being considered a performance-enhancing drug, while TRT was still prevalent in the sport, you know. So I think I'll be known for that, you know. And I think originally I wanted to be known for, you know, epic brawls, epic fights, just getting into slugfest. But, you know, from what I've seen from other fighters and even from personal experience, that kind of career, tons of injuries and just probably a shorter life expectancy. So, you know, I think right now my goal is just, you know, keep doing the right things, keep winning, and, you know, hopefully I can, you know, make a dent in the top 10 in the welterweight division, you know. But if not, I'll just have fun with the sport, and let's see where it takes me, you know.
So, we want to thank you for coming down and spending the time with us, and you know, doing this interview a year after the last time we interviewed you, just to kind of catch up and see what's going on. And we're very, very happy to see that you're back on track with having a reignited passion for mixed martial arts, and you're fighting again. You know, we're big fans. We always get responses from fans, you know, on the last interview that we did, and, you know, people who were just always saying, man, we want him to come back. He's going to be badass. So, you know, you definitely have a lot of fans that back you 100% in anything that you do. So definitely happy to see that. But we definitely want to thank you for coming back down. We hope to see you break that top 10 here pretty soon. And, you know, wishing you all the best, man, moving forward.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. So from Fight Life Flip, Matt Riddle, and Fight Life Media, we're out. How's it going, everybody? Today, on the flip side of things, I want to talk about exit strategy. A lot of you fighters don't really seem to think about this. You're very focused on in the now, what's going to be happening. We obviously just did this interview here with Matt Riddle, and we talked a little bit about that. You have to be ready to prepare for life after your sport, whether it's boxing, Muay Thai, MMA. Even if you're a professional football player, you still want to think about those sorts of things. So, you know, I'm really huge on branding yourself, considering yourself your own business, and it's very important as any business to have an exit strategy. You can come in, but how do you plan on leaving?
you have to be well prepared for anything that happens, after the window of competition closes. That shelf life, it's really small. Usually you're looking at 10 to 15 years. Some people were getting by a little further with it with the TRT, but what you're starting to see right now is obviously, a lot of those guys that had those exemptions aren't going to have them, and now they're just saying, you know what, I'm out. And, not everybody's going to have the opportunities that a guy like Chael Sonnen has, where he can go right in and work for Fox and do those sorts of things. So you need to really take into consideration what your plans are and how you're basically executing plans for after the sport. Majority of the people, when they graduate high school, they decide that they're going to go to college and basically take that route and go on into a career. Other people, fighters especially, usually tend to go directly into fighting and forego things like college or other business opportunities to focus entirely on their career, because that is basically one of the things about peak times in your life and all these other things. You only get to do this once. So I want you guys to definitely think about those sorts of things. Think about an exit strategy. What would happen if tomorrow you basically became injured and couldn't come back to the sport? You will never be able to fight again. What would you do with your life? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to use this sport to be able to capitalize on and accomplish later on down the road? There's not really anything in place for a lot of fighters as far as retirements or investment opportunities and things like that through the promotions. So what you need to do is you need to take these things into your own hands. You need to sit down with your management team or anything like that and basically discuss what it is that you want to accomplish after fighting. Whether it's running your own gym, basically working for another gym. If you want to do like Matt was saying, he basically went and got his real estate license and he sells real estate. So tons of opportunities out there for you. Definitely think about those things. There's stuff that you need to think about. Life after fighting, it's going to happen, so definitely plan for that. All right guys, so next week on flip side of things, we're going to talk about having a personal board of directors. Basically it's a group of people that you need to surround yourself with that are going to be able to help you succeed, whether it's in this sport, whether it's outside of this sport, or just life in general, because these are all things are integrated. So we'll talk next week about the board of directors for your life and how that's going to basically influence your life after fighting, your life during fighting, and anything that you have happening right now. So for the flip side of things, this is Fight Life Flip, Fight Life Media. Catch you next week. Hey, thanks for watching the show, guys. It's definitely an honor to have Ava Knight come down, spend some time with us, talk about female boxing and the state of boxing, as it stands right now. Also, awesome to hear from Matt Riddle a whole year after, the situations that he's dealt with, and talk about his recent win in Titan FC and some of the other stuff that he has coming up. As far as events coming up here in the Las Vegas area, the Las Vegas Fit Fest and Sports Festival, you're going to be able to catch that March 22nd. That's down at the the Sunset Sport Park, which is off of Las Vegas Boulevard and Sunset. The day after, March 23rd, WFC 19, World Fighting Championships 19. You can be able to see a couple of the up-and-comers in Las Vegas fight underneath the lights on Fremont Street, historic Fremont Street. And then, of course, the week after that, you have Lion Fight Promotions on the 28th. We did an interview on the radio with Michelle Diablita Gutierrez, who is going to be fighting on that card. Next week on the show, we're going to have Christine Toledo, Vice President of Lion Fight, to talk a little bit about Muay Thai and the state of Muay Thai. And then, of course, World Series of Fighting is going to be happening on the 29th. Those two events are going to be happening at the Hard Rock. So, if you're in the Las Vegas area and you want to get down to the Hard Rock, check out those fights, definitely check them out. So Lion Fight, World Series of Fighting at the end of the month. A week before that, you have WFC 19, and the day before that, the Las Vegas Fit Festival. So aside from that, that's everything that we had going on for today. We want to thank you for checking out the show, and always remember, without you, there's no us, and you are Fight Life Media.